Hey, I'm Tommy Boshers. Thanks for watching. If you want to stay connected for more Detroit Muscle, just click the subscribe button. Today on Detroit Muscle, we ditched the engine in our EBC giveaway car and make a huge incision to make room for fancy new suspension. Hey guys, welcome to the shop. From where you're sitting, you've got the view of some sweet American muscle. Now we're feeling a bit ambitious today, and we have some big plans for our EBC Mustang that we're planning to give away to one of you guys. And like the old saying goes, sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. That's the case on our old Stang here. It's time for us to disassemble this piece of Detroit muscle. It's like changing your new baby boy. All right, we'll let your mama clean you up.
On these old cars, you'll find a lot of what we'll call DIY improvements.
One fancy homemade bracket. It's got plenty of holes for adjustability.
That's right.
And versatility. You know, I think taking these headers off sucks, but I bet it sucks even worse putting them on.
Some of these parts we won't be reusing and will be inventory for the scrap bin. However, some of these things do have some worth to them, enough to fetch a few beers at the end of the day. Go ahead.
Now we're using a forklift just because we have one. A cherry picker will do the same thing, but it requires a lot more pumping.
It's pouring fluid. Right forward. The trans made a mess, as they usually do. Other than that, it came out without a hitch.
You didn't get any forward on you, did you?
I got a little bit on me, but it'll be all right. We're almost done now.
Well, we're partially there, aren't we?
Now all we got to do is finish taking the rest of it apart.
Well, I'm going to put away your collection of gold coins over here.
You never know what you're going to need, so always come prepared.
Well, if I put these away, I'm going to let you clean up that crime scene down there. What do you say?
Yeah. Well, I am the dirtiest of the two of us. I ain't figured that one out yet either.
Well, with age comes wisdom. I don't know, I'm out of loss. I don't have anywhere. I don't know where to go.
Well,
I'm just going to go put these up.
You got plenty of wisdom.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Well, we finally got the mess cleaned up, and now it's time to snatch this front suspension out from under it.
For you guys sitting on the couch wondering why we're taking apart a perfectly good car, well, it's because we're making room for innovation. And the plans we have for this car doesn't include old school technology.
It's a serious sway bar right there, buddy.
Right. That's for high-speed cornering. Okay guys, now that we got the front suspension completely removed and the engine and transmission sitting in the floor, we've got to do the same thing out back by removing all the rear suspension. First thing we're going to do is jump on our shocks.
Zipping out these shocks will open up some room for us, but getting rid of this old exhaust gives us even more.
Heck yeah. Yeah, buddy.
What do you think the chances are that these shackles are going to slide right out of the eyelets?
Is slim an option?
I think you're probably accurate.
That's what I was thinking. These were trouble, but with a little muscle and a handy pry bar, these leaf spring hangers slipped loose from their home.
Yes, sir. Come on up with it. That's not nearly as heavy as I thought it was going to be.
Well, you'd wrestle it like it was.
Well, I have to say, apparently you've been doing some pretty good work too. This old fella here's broke a sweat.
That's right.
Now we still got more to do. We got to get that interior out. What do you say, take a break for a minute?
I think we need to.
All right, cool. I'll let you buy the first round of soft drinks.
All right. How about a cheeseburger? Up next, cutting for days.
And burning wire for hours on end.
A challenging task, but it'll be worth it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. Now we've got quite a bit of Mustang laying here in the floor. Some of it is what I'm gonna call, used to be, with all the old parts here. The other is the gonna be. Now to do the upgrade that we're planning to do, that's the reason we stripped this thing down. Motor, transmission, rear suspension, front suspension, and even the interior. Because we're gonna have to cut in on this whole thing. But it's all good because when we're all said and done, this thing is gonna be above and beyond. And to help with that, well, I brought in a skilled surgeon. Well, Matt, you've been studying the backside of this carcass, if you will, of a Mustang. You got your plan of attack together?
We got a lot of cutting we got to do on this thing. We got to get these wheel tubs out of the way, carve out a section of the floor, and we're going to replace section of the frame rail one side at a time.
That's right. All in preparation for those big tires that's going up under there. Well, you're going to have to make some marks, I assume, throw a few sparks. I know we're going to have to drill out quite a few spot welds. And go grab a tool for that if you want to go ahead and get busy.
You got it.
Let me get out of your way. Matt's a friend of ours, and the last time we were catching up, he said, man, if you need anything, just holler. So we took him up on his offer. On a big task like this, it's nice to have an extra set of hands to help with the job.
And this is a big job. There are plenty of incisions that need to be carefully laid out, with consideration for each step that follows. Cut after cut, Matt makes progress on prepping the rear end for the new tubs. And the frame rail is no exception. Those bump stops, they have to go.
The factory frame rail in our Mustang runs along the inner wheel tub and tapers toward the outside of the car, giving us more wheel clearance in the front than there is in the rear. The new frame rail section from Detroit Speed fixes that issue by straightening out the frame rail, giving us more wheel clearance in the rear. Now to install this, we have to remove a section of the factory frame rail. To do that, we have to trim away some more sheet metal, however it's spot welded to the old frame. Now there's a number of ways to remove these old spot welds. One method is to use a wide disc grinder like this one. It's going to make some pretty quick work of grinding out your weld to separate your two panels, but it's going to leave your surface pretty rough if you're going to re-weld those holes back up. And with that being said, it's not going to work for us. We're going to use a spot weld cutter. It's kind of like a mini hole saw. It cuts around the spot weld, leaving a nice clean hole to weld our trunk floor to our new frame rail. Taking the tortoise approach is the best method for this. You definitely don't want to cut too deep, especially if you're going to be reusing your inner panel.
Once the upper trunk pan is detached from the rail, it's time for more cutting. Pay attention to what you're cutting here. Think about it. You're slicing into the main structure of the car. You know that old saying, measure twice, cut once. Well, Matt's been making some really good progress doing the upgrade here on the tail end of our Mustang. Now, doing this conversion has a whole lot going for it. One of them is, it's obvious that you guys can tell that we're going to be able to fit a significantly wider tire under the tail end of our Mustang. And with the power output that we're looking to make, that's going to help get all that power to the ground. The other one is, we're converting from that old school leaf spring setup to now a coilover and 4-link. Now that alone is going to make this car ride and drive daylight and dark difference. But there's a few things, if you're looking to do this type of conversion, that you need to consider. One of them is your skill set. We had to cut into the frame rail on this car, and that alone scares people to death. And 2 is the time to do this type of thing. Now this alone can take you 40+ hours to do it. This isn't really a job that you can take and tear the car down on a Friday night and be back driving this thing to work Monday morning. So just make sure you do your research before you make your decision.
The good thing about having one side done is that you're halfway there. So Matt just repeated the process on the passenger side.
So that means we have to section the frame on this side as well and burn it in. Man, yeah, Matt, you have made some pretty good progress, and man, I want to say thank you for all your hard work.
Hey, I know how busy you guys are here. Anything I can do to help out. I'd love to stick around and help with the Quadrilink kit, but I gotta head back home. Think you can take it from here?
Oh yeah, man, I can handle this. Now you guys don't run off, we still got more to do, and I have to say, I can't wait to see this thing when it's done. Huge tire now.
Oh yeah, easily 2-3 more inches out of this.
Coming up, a little welding tech. Some tips for those rosette welds, next on Detroit Muscle. Well, we're about waist deep in the mini tub and rear suspension install on our old Mustang. Now, if you're looking to do something like this, or even a panel replacement on your ride, there's one thing you're definitely going to run into, and that would be spot welds. Now, them things can be a pain to remove and even difficult to simulate, but there's a few tips and tricks that you can apply to up your welding game. The goal is to attach 2 or more panels, and there are a couple of common practices. A spot weld is where using a welder you direct an arc to penetrate both pieces, or a plug weld where you drill or punch a hole and weld through that to weld the 2 pieces together. I prefer to plug weld and to punch instead of drill where I can, and using the Silver Eagle punch and flange tool from Matco sure does get a lot of work done in a hurry. Here we're going to punch out 4 8mm holes to attach our panel. And like I said, it does it in a hurry. That was easy, and this is a 2-in-1 tool. It'll save you time and give you professional results. Now the next thing we need to do is clamp these 2 panels together. What you're looking for is a nice tight gap like this in here. If it's kind of spread apart, well, that's going to compromise the strength of your weld joint. Well, we're pretty much ready to start burning some wire and getting our welder dialed in. Now, I'd recommend you guys doing this if you were preparing to weld a panel in on your car, because it'll save you some time as opposed to screwing your panel up. Trust me, been there, done that. Now, there's pretty much 2 different ways that guys like to do rosette style welds. Some of them build a puddle in the middle, then go around the perimeter, and others do vice versa. Start on the outside and then just fill up the center. Let's turn this machine on, see what we got. Most welders have a convenient chart with the predetermined settings. You just need to know a few things like wire size, gas, and the material you'll be working with. Once you have all that, you just dial in your voltage and wire speed, and you're ready to pull the trigger. Whew, that's not good at all. It's too cold. A little goes a long way here. We just need a little more heat for a better weld. Ain't too bad. To get it to perfection, sometimes it takes a little more of this and a little less of that to get it just right. Oh yeah, that one's nice. That's pretty much what you're looking for, a nice blue heat ring and a flat weld. Now this is kind of the tried and true method and has been done this way for many years. But if you're a professional shop and looking for superior results, well, we have a tool for you. The Coilover CTR9 is a great time-saving tool when it comes to spot welding. A single weld can take up to 30 seconds with a MIG, but with the CTR9, each weld takes approximately 1 second, which drastically reduces the amount of heat you're putting into the panel. It can weld up to a maximum combined thickness of 10 millimeters in full automatic mode. Also, this thing self-calibrates when you start it up. It's lightweight and ergonomic, which means less fatigue on those long work days. And I have to say, when we start our next big project, I can't wait to give Coilover a try. Up next,
The Mustang got new legs, Lieutenant Dan. We're back to work prepping on our EBC Mustang for the trick suspension kit we got from Summit Racing. Tommy's had to do quite a bit of whittling and trimming to make room for that upgraded back end. We've had to burn a good bit of wire installing all the bracketry and reinforcements, making way for this superior suspension.
we went ahead and sprayed the underside of our Mustang with some undercoating. This cuts down on road noise and prevents rust. The next thing we need to do is install our links and sway bar. This is pretty much straightforward and just nut and bolt action. With some grade 8 hardware, we can attach our upper and lower links. With a few more pieces, we can cinch down the rear sway bar.
While Tommy's over there installing those rear control arms, I'm going to start putting our coilover assemblies together. Now these came with a rear suspension kit. They're JRI double adjustable shocks that have been tuned to Detroit Speed specifications, and they use Torrington bearings, which allow for easy adjustment during preloading. Now the nice thing about these is they don't use any special tools for assembly. They don't even use snap ring pliers. All they have is a stainless steel retaining ring that can be removed by hand. But before we go any further, I just wanted to show you a really cool feature of these shocks and the way they're designed. With this ring removed, the upper spring seat comes off. When we put it all back together, the spring seat and the retaining ring, you'll notice there's an interference fit. Believe it or not, that little old bitty ring and 3 of his buddies are all that's holding the car up. Boy, that's some engineering right there. Well, enough of the small talk. I gotta get these springs on before cousin over there fires me. Now for pre-assembly, the spanner and the jam nut need to be run all the way to the bottom of the body. Then we can get to greasing the Torrington bearing. Detroit Speed recommends using an extreme pressure grease on each bearing and thrust washer. When you go to slip these bearings over the body, be sure and have all your excess grease wiped off, because the less mess, the better. And with the upper spring seats in place, simply flip over the shock and cinch down the adjustment nut to hold everything in place. Voila.
Man, look at that accomplishment.
I know, look good, don't they?
With a couple more bolts, we can hang our coilovers and cinch them down. Then we'll slide in our housing, line everything up, and slide in a few more bolts. A couple of these may take a little wrestling to get them in there, but nothing a tool of persuasion can't handle. Before we put this chunk in, I'm gonna let you do the honors of leaving these people a little, note, if you will. Maybe some sweet nothings or something.
I think I can handle that.
So what'd you write?
Lifters are losers, making reference to lifting off that skinny pedal too early in the race. When you lift too soon, you lose every time. We're getting ready to install the rear differential on our Mustang here, and there's a couple of things we need to pay attention to before we do so. These pumpkin style rear ends, like our Ford 9-inch here, all have a common problem. They leak. There's a couple of ways to address that, whether it be with a gasket, sealant, or both. Now let me show you the problem. These lower studs are in what I like to call the reservoir of the differential, meaning they are submerged in oil when the car is parked. I do two things for preventative strategy. First, I like to apply a small amount of sealant to the backside of all of the studs to lower the chances of leaks. Also, with a quality gasket, I like to add more sealant to the threads for good insurance. With that leak prevention in place, we can add the chunk and cinch down the bolts. For the rear axle seal, I like to go the extra mile here as well. This may seem a little excessive, but I've seen these things leak before. So a small amount around the flange will do the trick. Get in there, you turkey. All right. Well, that about tops off our upgrades to the tail end of our car here, and I hope some of those tips we talked about earlier will help keep those greasy spots out of your floor.
We've made some really good progress for today, just getting the suspension finished here on the back side. We still got a long row to hoe, if you will, with the front suspension, engine and tranny, and so on. But I'm gonna call it. I've had my fill for the day, and I'm ready to go to the house.
Yeah, me too. I think it's time to go get a milkshake.
If you like what you saw on today's show or have any questions, you should go to PowerNationTV.com and check out our project pages. There you will find current build status, before and after pics, lists to the parts used, and links to all the shows. Y'all have a good one.